Hey, what's going on? So, new year, new me, not really, but I'm coming at you with the breakdown of my most recent Unreal Engine 5 animation called the Ritual Site. And right off the bat, if you're interested, the entire 10-hour process is available on my Patreon, including voiceover. So, I'm trying my best to speak on every step along the way, but without further ado, let's get into it. So, we start by creating a new project inside Unreal Engine 5. We want to make sure that ray tracing is enabled in case we need it for future projects. I'm doing the film and TV preset for my project because I'm mainly working on animations most of the time, so that just makes sense. And what you want to do for a blueprint is you want to enable every plugin that you might need and tweak every project setting that might be important to you. So that's things like the Geometry Scripts plugin, which I need for the Scatter plugin that I'm using, and the Movie Render Legacy Q, Apple ProRes if you want to export in ProRes, you want to enable HDRI backdrops, you want to tweak your project settings like I'm doing with the Scatter count. And right here I'm adjusting the ray tracing settings so I can make sure that ray tracing is enabled in case I do need it. Just things like these that go a long way. So you might want to also enable basic things like you want to enable the bridge, the Quixel Bridge plugin or the MetaHuman plugin. And then I'm duplicated what I just created, so I can always just duplicate off that base whenever I want to start a new project. You want to import all your settings and assets and plugins into your scene. And then you can just get started right off the bat. So I enabled the Ultra Dynamic Sky plugin, which is a must-have. It's an amazing sky. And I start by just blocking out the entire scene. I'm tweaking the light settings and I'm adding like basic shapes. This is not going to be a complex scene. I knew that from the beginning, but I did want to get a basic grasp of what I was trying to achieve. So that's why we are using all these asset packs that are most of the time free on the Unreal Engine marketplace. So I'm not even talking the Quixel Megascans assets, but actual scenes. So that is like the gothic horror environment that used to be, I mean, probably not free. I did pay for it, but a lot of these things that I'm using in here are free. So as a tip, if you're starting out with Unreal Engine, I would always go to your Unreal Engine marketplace library, and aside from the Quixel ones, always check out the free for the month section, because you always get incredible asset packs every month, and it's different ones most of the time. So right here you can see me still blocking out the scene. That's a long process. That'll always be the thing where it takes a bit to get something where you know, okay, this is the right track, I'm on the right track. And this is about that point where I knew, okay, yeah, what I was trying to achieve here makes sense. I'm just creating a landscape so I can use that landscape as a scatter option for my foliage. The good thing about Unreal is you can basically just paint foliage in a way that, I don't know, like you would on a regular canvas, and the performance is great. The only issue is that with Megascans assets, the level of details always tweak out, and that's why you need to adjust some certain settings. In my case, it's the lip mask value, but aside from just using regular foliage, I'm also using the IA or BP, I think it's the IA Scatter plugin, which comes as a blueprint where you can just seamlessly, like without a hitch, the engine just lets you scatter thousands upon thousands of objects. And that's what I'm using to further increase the variety of my foliage and my grass. As it's a night scene, I want to make sure that the lighting is kind of subdued. I'm now adding candles to the focal point of my scene, so that's where I want to draw the eye. So that's why I'm going to add some light sources that are a bit more extreme. Also using the IA Scatter plugin, which is highly recommended. Just like the Ultra Dynamic Sky plugin, it's a must-have for everyone that is starting out with Unreal. These aren't too expensive. just such a nice ass addition to the software for real. Yeah, more rocks, more Quixel assets, more regular assets. The grass is scattered, the candles are scattered, the graveyard, cemetery, stones, whatever are scattered. And slowly and without a hitch, so just slowly and not even painfully, we're getting to a borderline very nice scene. By just adding and adding, layering upon layering, you can just fill up your scene and the performance stays great. Of course, that also depends on your hardware, but most of the time it's very performance friendly and it only gets disgusting after a while. And if you add a lot of heavy objects into your scene, but Unreal Engine handles things like a champ, especially with nanite function enabled, so you don't even need to worry about anything really. Adjusting materials like you would, because of course the stairs, they don't make sense. I don't want them to be that bright. I need this to be dark and moody, and I want this to be overgrown. I don't want the chapel to be clean. That's why I'm also adding instances of that same material to the chapel and the stones and the structures. By instancing the materials and switching the offset for the tiling and the projection, we can make sure the repetition gets broken off a bit. The issue with the chapel model is that the UVs are symmetrical and doesn't really make sense, but I knew that's okay because it's a good base coat, and later on we will tweak that and hide those imperfections by having like ivy leaves and additional plants on there. Now we're onto the character that is the center point of this piece. I wanted to get like this sort of, not really Bloodborne inspired, but like along those way, like Victorian, and we get this moody, weird ass ritual with this spider web type shape with these disgusting ass blobs. That's how I envisioned it. I wanted it to be like True Detective meets Bloodborne, Victorian chapel, stuff like that. And I'm just getting the base coat for my shapes inside Cinema 4D, because that's still where I'm the most comfortable doing this. I'm using the Easy Ivy plugin for gooey shapes that just bind the spiderweb net that we have created to the structure. And I just keep adding to it, and when I knew, okay, that's a point I like, I can start drawing over our character because I want her to be tangled up in this. And then when we are done with this, we can bring those base shape layers into ZBrush and we can start modifying this and just go ham. I kind of struggled a lot with the UV portion of this because I should have actually remeshed this to a very low point, added UVs in ZBrush, and then just resculpted my way up, which I did not do, and that is a very big mistake. I struggled hours upon hours with this. And so if you ever want to do something like this, make sure that you get your UVs straight before you import anything or before you sculpt anything, and then just go from there, because I could have saved myself a lot of headache if I just resculpted a lot of detail. But as you can see, it still looks very dope, and it also ends working out. It ends up working out. So that's all fine and dandy, to be honest. What I did there is adding detail by using a trick that I like to use. It's basically just the creature shape packs, which come with eyes and mouths and all that stuff, and I just use these mouth brushes to get these incredibly dope shapes going for her, and then I just add upon it with like orb, crack, damn standard brushes and all that stuff, so we can get like nice shapes going. I knew that if I wanted to get close, I don't want to get too close, but to a point where I knew, okay, I should focus my detail on the chest and face part of her, because that's probably where the focal point would be if I ended up going in further than I did at the end. And what I just did with her as a character, I also did with the spider web, which is basically just remeshing it and then resculpting it and adding detail. And what you can see right here is not all in one batch. This was all over the place because of the UV struggling that I had. So yeah, just make sure that whenever you want to do something like this, that your UVs are in line before you can't go back anymore, or you would have to redo everything. But that's basically the same progress for the web. I added mouth brushes and then just some regular sculpting. I then did the horrible UVs inside Blender, which worked out okay for what I was trying to do. Not ideal, and I learned my lesson from this, but at least I solved my problem, and we are just doing our utmost minimal in Substance Painter by using monster type textures and horror type textures with Smart Mask to layer all these different types of materials on top of each other, adding some moss, adding some blood, making sure some spots are more specular and with less roughness than others. Just get a bit of variety going, but not too much, because I felt that if I went to go too crazy, it would go overboard really fast, and I tried to avoid that. So I just did like 3 to 4 layers tops for each part of her as well as the web. And yeah, procedural layering with all these smart materials and smart masks inside Substance Painter is super dope. Always have a lot of fun doing that because you can get some really dope results very quickly. And when you're done with that, you can basically just export your textures to the Unreal preset package, which comes with Substance Painter, of course. You just have to select the Unreal package when you export them. Now I knew I wanted an FBI agent, so I did a basic DAS model with as little polygons as I needed it to be, because Mixamo always kinda struggles if you go too crazy, so that's why I also left out hair, but it ended up working just fine. The model was like 22 megabytes and it wasn't a problem at all. I rigged it, make sure that I just have the bare necessities. I realized there was a split in between the pants and the shoes, so that's why I redid it, and now I just added the walking with shopping bag animation, which I knew I could easily tweak as I'm doing right here. Just changing the animation that I exported out of Mixamo inside Unreal to have her hold an imaginary flashlight. And now we just combining the T-pose with the regular animation pose so I can bring it into Marvelous and give her an FBI agent jacket. Once everything's set up and in line, we can start animating this. I just need to tweak the UVs first. Add the basic as FBI font, and then I can just simulate on top of the animation that we have tweaked and export it out of Unreal Engine. Easy clap. And you can import that into Unreal as an Alembic geometry cache, no problem. No matter the size, no matter the quality, no matter the pixel density, you get like real-time playback in the viewport. It's all super responsive. It's just such a dream coming from Cinema 4D. I'm sure things have changed, and here I realized, oh damn, I still need to texture everything, so I textured the FBI jacket. I wanted it to be dirty, so we are layering some dirt material on top of the jacket, and then we are doing the same for the beanie, for the pants, and for the shoes. I did not texture the skin because I knew at this point I'm not going for close-ups, and the base material is just fine. Did not overthink it. I just did the bare minimum to bring my vision to what I wanted it to be. And there we go, yeah, some dirt between the cracks and on the beanie, on the shoes, and then we're good to go to send off these materials into Unreal. I set up a blueprint inside Unreal to make sure that I can just drag the model, including the added spotlight function, onto the timeline or onto the scene, and it would work just fine. So I basically attached a spotlight and a rudimentary flashlight model onto her character skeleton that would automatically be wherever her right hand is, as that is the hand that we have tweaked beforehand to make sure that that's where the spotlight is waving around. Now I'm just importing the materials and the figure of the ritual into the scene, checking if everything works, and then I can slowly build up everything else around it, because at this point we're almost pretty much done. Just tweaking some things, making sure the blueprint is all set up, then tweaking the keyframes, and we end up going a bit back and forth because I wanted the flashlight to not sway as much, and that's why you can see me going in and out of that animation window. But at a certain point I knew it was correct, because a bit of sway was cool. I just wanted to make sure that he starts at the floor and goes up to the ritual creature, female, whatever it may be. And yeah, at this point we are just trying to complete the scene with some more tree additions, and that's another good key point. Sure, your hardware has to be beefy for a lot of use cases like this, but at the end of the day you can still plug in trees upon trees into your scene and still get real-time viewport playback with like dense models and large geometry caches as Alembic files and all that stuff, and that's just a pleasure to work with, and still very mind-boggling to me that it even works that well. Such a dope ass thing. But yeah, at this point I'm just adding to the scene where you can see me add more grass, you can see me add like ritual decals, more stones and more trees. There's the ivy I was talking about earlier. I knew I had to do something along those lines because the material of the chapel was symmetrical and I knew I had to break it up in some way, and that would just work fine. Some of these ivy meshes had like light texture problems, and sometimes I know how to fix it and sometimes I'm just stumped. So I ended up tweaking those and replacing some of it with actual branches and tree stumps, because that would work just better for my use case. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So we're just tweaking some details here and there, adding some things here and there, and then it's off to the races. So we're done with this. We can export out our scene, and then in a moment start color correcting inside After Effects and go to town on it. And at this point I knew I was done, but I just wanted to make sure that the camera shots are locked in, and I knew I wanted to break up the front of our composition a bit more, so that's why I'm trying to put up another fence, which I scrapped immediately, and I was like, yeah, let's just try and get two big more trees at the front and some rocks, and then that's it. Add a light source for our second and first shot so we can get the FBI agent a bit more prevalent in the final composition. And that's when I decided, yeah, nah, I'm good. So we can just render those two shots and then start color correcting inside After Effects. Fairly easy, so I'm using the Z depth pass that I exported out of Unreal to apply depth of field. And the only thing I'm then doing is adding a colorista, a lot, tweaking highlight midlight and shadow, midpoint, not midlight, and then adding a dehancer plugin for the film grain and a bit of bloom, tweaking some of the color values, and I did that for both shots, and we're done.